Elizabeth Audencream.
This One's Wife. The Treatment of Archie. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Narcissists, as I've made clear on many occasions, appear in lots of different dynamics. The one that many people speak about, of course, is the romantic entanglement that takes place, as this often creates considerable devastation to the victim. But probably on a par with that is the familial ensnarement. Only yesterday, one of my videos formed the basis of an article in the Daily Mail newspaper, and several hundred comments that accompanied the article about my work, which was about 10 ways to spot a parental narcissist, demonstrated just how many people have been affected by a parental familial narcissist. This is the situation that faces Archie Mountbatten Windsor. Whilst there are those that may suggest that Archie does not exist, on the basis that he does, what is the treatment of him like? How is it that this one's wife treats him as her son? It provides us with an interesting understanding of the dynamic between narcissist parent and son. He has the position of non-intimate secondary source in her fuel matrix. This means that his fuel is of a moderate potency. He will be easy to control because he's a child, physically weak compared to an adult, intellectually not on the same level, although one might argue perhaps he is on the same level with Harry. But the point remains, a child is easy to control for a narcissist. There's the use of threat, the application of physical punishment, and the child is not in a position to necessarily fight back, not until they're much older. Initially, Archie experienced a golden period through facade management. In the early stages, we saw a reasonable amount of him, certainly compared to the paucity of appearances that are the case now. He was showcased, you'll remember, sitting on this one's wife's lap as he appeared to want to get away from her, where he was half-dressed with a rather full diaper or nappy that he was wearing. But this one's wife wanted to show the world that, as a mum, how proud she was of this child. She would triangulate the audience with her son for the purposes of drawing fuel from them, to manage her facade, to make her look like this caring mother. And thus, Archie experienced a golden period when he was being used, because he is simply an appliance that is there to be used by the narcissist, when he was paraded by this one's wife in photographs and in filmed footage, for instance, for the Harry and This One's Wife's documentary. However, since then, little has been seen of Archie. It's worth bearing in mind that Archie wasn't viewed as important enough to get a royal name, unlike his sister. He got Archie, which is understood by some to be the code name in relation to another member of the royal family, and there have been those who've suggested that it was done as part of the unpleasant behaviour of this one's wife, again taking things that are attributable to other people and utilising it for her own use, character trait acquisition and also provocation. Evidently, Archie wasn't as viewed as important enough, and this is because this one's wife has an underlying view when it comes to the two sexes. She is biased in favour of girls. Notice, repeatedly, she talks about the empowerment of women and young girls. That when she gives an address, it's to young girls in a school, or attends a school and mainly talks to the girls. That she is involved with organisations which help girls and women. So, for instance, the organisation SmartWorks is about assisting women in relation to getting back into work. That her cookbook in relation to the Grenfell disaster was done with women. That she appeared just recently with the Afghan women, where she utilise that again for the pursuit of the prime aims. Whilst, of course, she throws herself at men and uses sex as a means to assert control over them, she actually regards men with contempt, seeing them as simply a device where she can use her feminine wiles to get what she requires. But she sees herself as for the women, for young girls, and therefore this colours her behaviour towards her son. He is not only seen as second best to her, because of course as the narcissist she must always come first, but he's second best compared to his sister. You'll notice also that with this one's wife, that as I've explained previously, that whilst both her parents are narcissists, she shows a comparative favour towards her mother, but not her father. For all of his faults, Thomas Markle stayed around and raised his daughter, sought to treat her like a princess, didn't disappear for a number of years, like Doria did. Whilst there remains a degree of mystery as to where Doria went, the fact was she was absent from this one's wife's life, and one would expect that that might engender a degree of resentment or annoyance on the part of the child, but it hasn't. It's Thomas Markle who is the one who has suffered, and this is because of the inherent bias that this one's wife has against men and in favour of women. What will this mean for Archie? It means he will find himself as the scapegoat. He will be the one who will be viewed unfavourably with his sister. He will be repeatedly triangulated with her. Why can't you be as good as Lilibet? Look what Lilibet's done. Why can't you be like that? Lilibet's achievements will be thrust in his face. He will be told that he's not done as well as her, that she is better than him. A parent with emotional empathy would never behave that way. A parent with a sense of accountability towards their children would never play them off against one another. But a narcissist will, because it means that she can prompt a reaction from him, that she can use the repeated put-downs of him by way of comparison to his sister as a means to control him. He becomes blamed for every mishap, every misdeed, every mistake. It lands at Archie's door. It means he will not be supported. He will not be encouraged. He will not be looked upon favourably. Yes, there will be occasions where he will get respite instances, and particularly should he ever make an appearance in front of other people, and I don't mean necessarily publicly, but in relation to, say, Doria, or in relation to somebody who comes to visit, then this one's wife will treat him in a favourable manner as part of her facade management. And the boy, grateful, desperate for some affection and attention, will respond to that, unwittingly facing the fact that he's just being manipulated once again. Thirsty for comfort and kindness, he will, of course, run towards his mother, and then become confused when, once the show is over, he's pushed to one side in favour of his sister. This is naturally where Harry would need to step in, that he ought to provide a protective barrier for his son in relation to the mistreatment from his wife. It doesn't necessarily mean that this one's wife would be actively cruel towards him, although that could happen, in terms of striking him or calling him bad names. It's more likely, as a mid-range narcissist, she's always going to blame him, that she will tell him off with words, that she will compare him unfavourably, that she will say how disappointed she is in him, that she will be emotionally distant from him, that her time and attention will be directed towards Lilibet to the extent that it happens, and not so much on him, that he'll always be told to go away and play by himself, that he'll be left to his own devices. This is where the non-narcissist parent becomes all the more important, but as a consequence of Harry fighting his own battles vis-à-vis this one's wife, and more recently being away from home a heck of a lot more, one really has to question the extent to which he can provide the relevant assistance and support that Archie would need. This might actually come from the help, the nannies, the other people that are involved in the household, who may well spend a lot more time with Archie and to whom he would form a greater level of attraction and connection. For Archie, his treatment is going to be of repeated corrective devaluations. They will be manifesting by way of neglect for the most part, not in the sense of leaving him unclean and hungry, but rather emotionally starved, that he isn't given the support or encouragement, whilst it all goes to his sister instead. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.